Indigenous hip-hop artist, has claimed the ABC censored him and only had him on the network to claim cultural diversity. Ziggy Ramo appeared on last night's Q&A panel and was also scheduled to perform at the end of the show. However, in a passionate monologue, the artist explained that he wanted to sing a different song, but was told by the ABC that he couldn't. The song featured the lyrics, "I hate the Anzacs." But as you'll see, there's more to the story.
For example, on this show today, the song that I'm going to perform is called Stand for Something. The song I initially was going to perform was called April 25th. And this is a song that I was not allowed to perform. Like I was basically censored in the fact that the ABC said that it was not appropriate. So is it performative? Because me sitting on this panel ticks off a box for the ABC that is cultural diversity, but if I'm not able to express my perspective, is it performative or is it actual cultural diversity? Because the whole point of a song about April 25th is saying that I've seen this country recognise the sacrifices that have been made so that we could all sit here today. So if I've seen us be able to do that for our non-Indigenous people and our Indigenous people, like you said, who fought in these wars in 1945, that the ABC is commemorating 75 years since the end of World War II, yet in 1945, Indigenous Australians weren't even classed as citizens. And as soon as after I say I hate the Anzacs, I say, how wrong is that? How wrong is that? We pick and choose our history, we rearrange the facts. We fought for a country that didn't see us as humans. We weren't seen as humans in our own country. So the reason why I wanted to talk about this and in my art is that I want to celebrate the Anzacs, and I do celebrate the Anzacs. I've gone to the other side of the world on Anzac Day to celebrate what our people have laid down for us. So if we've done that, we can't just pick parts of our history that we want to recognise and bury the others. If in World War II we fought against genocide, yet we don't recognise the genocide in our own country, that's a double standard.
Ziggy was praised by users on social media, but fellow guest Barnaby Joyce warned you have to be careful what you say because you can insult people. Ben, do you think the ABC was right in saying no to Ziggy's original song choice?
You know, I think that they probably were right, to be honest with you, but just like there's plenty of ways to skin a cat. There's so many different ways to be able to talk about this. You know, like in so much of what he's saying, I do agree with him. But nowadays, to fit into the constructs of making sure we don't offend anybody, everyone's now really sensitive. So I think what the ABC were worried about was that being taken out of context and then being hung for it, you know, which quite often can happen.
Absolutely.
You know?
Robert, could you imagine if he had sat up and sung that song, what the headlines would have been the following day of what the ABC is allowing and pushing a certain agenda? He's still got the chance to talk about it, but when you go on a program, decisions have to be made that aren't just about you. They're about the greater focus of the program. And I think it's disingenuous to say that he's ticking a cultural box. You know, the fact is they invited him on the show to have their say, but a performance is a different thing. That's an authorised piece of entertainment. Have your say. You still got to talk about it. I think this is completely... He's on the wrong path here.
Wholeheartedly disagree with you there, Rob. He is an artist. He's a hip-hop artist. He was signed up and he was brought onto that program being in that capacity. It wasn't like that he was, you know, a pottery shop owner or, you know, an Indigenous painter living in the territory. He was brought on because he was a hip-hop artist and he writes songs that go to what he's talking about. The wonderful thing, I think, is he still performed it anyway there, really, didn't he? And I think that that was very correct. The ABC is a very risk-averse organisation, and they have to be. I understand that. There are so many stakeholders, and their biggest stakeholder is also their biggest critic, which is the federal government. For Barnaby Joyce to come out and say, "Oh, be careful what you say because it could offend people," piss off. Like, for that man to go on national television and then chastise an Indigenous Australian saying, "Well, you've got to be careful what you're saying because it could offend people." This is a man who, you know, campaigned on family rights, who campaigned against
look,
same-sex
I'm not worried
marriage.
about Barnaby Joyce in this argument. He just happened to be on the panel.
No, but that's a very important thing, though. And the thing is, if you book a guest on the show, they booked him, and we both know how we all know how TV works. He was booked because yes, he's Indigenous, and yes, he's a hip hop artist, and yes, he's very articulate, and yes, he does work in that field. To then get him on and say, look, you can't do that one. That's a bit wrong. It also goes. It feeds
So
into
he
that
should have
narrative.
been allowed. If he had a song that just said "F all Australians, F all you, you are all C's," he can go on and sing that song because that would be censoring him.
That's not the song that he's singing. That's a ridiculous example.
You're making a statement that by having him on, it's the end result is they have to allow him to perform any piece that he wants to. He's actually very lucky that he's getting national airtime to sing a song and represent. It doesn't mean you get to choose the absolute thing that you want to do. It's part of negotiations. If you're not happy with that, don't go on.
He is being brought on because of his work and because of the art that he creates, and that is about Indigenous rights. That's what he's being brought on.
Right. Now, that does not give you the right to sing any song that you want to. As the producers of the show, you have to make decisions for a variety of reasons over what. It's a negotiation. It's a negotiation.
I understand that, Rob, but when you're getting someone on a program like Q&A and that he has written these songs, and also let's not forget that straight after that line in that song, and you also explained it there in the clip, he defends that and says that's not something. But you've got to remember that a lot of people feel that way. This is the most important thing. Q&A is a thing, is meant to be a show that represents people and represents a variety of voices. And now, he was right there. It wasn't until the 60s that Indigenous people were not considered animals of flora or fauna. It took that long. So in 1945, hold on, 1945, he is talking about the fact that all of a sudden we considered Indigenous Australians to be, now they're bloody good enough to go and fight wars for us. That's the point of his song. Don't get him on if you don't want him to do what he does, and that is talk about these
Robbo,
stories.
It's just not choose what he's saying, though. I mean, yesterday you accused us of, all of a sudden changing the topic to something else, to suit the play. And I feel like today you're doing this. But then why are you all of a sudden reading our statistics like off the back of a Fantails packet again? It's like we're sticking to this particular argument. This guy was asked to be on the ABC. The person who produced that show was a little bit concerned about whether or not the audience would be offended. They chose for him to be on the show to represent something, and he was on the show to do that.
He's not representing what he wants to represent. He's not representing he wants to represent.
Robbo, in everything.
Then don't go on the show. If you don't like the conditions of entry, don't go through the turnstile. It's a really simple thing. The fact is they gave him a platform, an hour-long platform to sprout his views. Why is it a guarantee that he even gets to perform? They liked what he did. They understood. They wanted to give him the chance. They had an issue with one song because of so many issues. That's not censorship. That's just part of a negotiation of going on a TV show.
I just don't agree with that. I just think that if you're getting someone on as a guest on Q&A, that's the kind of program it is. This is the kind of work he does. And then to censor him and go, well, no, you can't do that one. Even though he explained it, I loved how articulate he was, that he,
he's amazing.
He was able to say, yes.
No one's taking that away from him.
This is what he believes in, and I think it was a mistake to censor him because that is what he was on there to do.
There's a big difference, Robbo. Let's be honest here. There is a big difference between him sprouting all that on the TV and saying
I don't like your word sprouting. He's talking about actual, real issues that affect Indigenous people.
Don't twist my words, Robbo. I'm saying here that there is a big difference between him going on and stating his opinion, if you want me to put it in proper English, than getting a performance at the end where you're not being challenged and you get to basically talk for 3.5 minutes with your own art to Australia. Decisions do have to be made on what is appropriate and what is not. And you can't tell me that if he had performed that, there wouldn't be front page news today about how the ABC had allowed this to happen. It's just BS.
I would disagree with that headline. I think that's rubbish. You're getting him on because of what he has done. So he is that person who sprouts that particular, opinion, as
which
you call it.
Which he got to talk about.
Yeah,
I don't understand your issue here. He got to talk. They stopped him from singing one top song.
At the end of the day, I just don't agree with what you're saying. I think that he was censored.
One thing I want to make clear about this is I'm not talking about what he's saying. I'm talking about the right of the producers to determine what goes on their show. They still invited him to be able to say everything that he wanted to say. They just disagreed about the song choice at the end. And I've had those discussions when, you know, an artist comes out, they don't want to sing the old song, they only want to sing the new song, and you're trying to negotiate to get the song that everybody loves as well. There's negotiations that go on. It is not just a right that if you go on a show, you get to sing that song. It's just not a right.
Good point.
It's the Ben, Rob and Robbo, Ben, Rob and Robbo Show. Ben, Rob and Robbo Show.